March 25, 1965, the day where Martin Luther King led hundreds of African Americans to the streets of Selma, Alabama, with the participation of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. King led them in a nonviolent protest for blacks' rights to vote in Alabama. But this was just one of the many marches. How did this movement start? (1965). The Civil Rights Act has already been passed and had made segregation and public accommodations illegal. Black communities all over the country rejoice over the decision, as it is a beacon of hope for racial progress. But here in Selma, Alabama, government officials are yet to follow this trend of progression. The majority of black Southerners were required to take an exam which will determine their qualification to vote in the state of Alabama. However, those exams were tedious and complex, and the correct answers were nearly impossible to find. This ensures that there will not be any significant amount of African American voters. Not only that, but registration offices would open 2 out of 30 days, while only admitting 15 people a day. This spurred frustration amongst the black citizens of Alabama. To counter against the injustice that they felt in the deprivation of their voting rights, leaders of the Nonviolent Coordinating Committee attempted to battle against these regulations. But as it is with most campaign for progress, it was full of difficulties. Judge Hare had issued a ban on the occurrence of mass meetings in 1964. Previously, the Dallas County Voters League were established with the goal of registering black voters into Selma. Female activist and key figure of the American Civil Rights Movement, Amelia Boynton Robinson, invited Martin Luther King to join in on the campaign and expand on this goal. On January 2nd of 1965, Martin Luther King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference demonstrated their first sign of nonviolent resistance. Judge Hare's ban on mass meetings did not stop them from gathering and spreading news on more upcoming meetings. On top of meetings, blacks were also marching through the streets of Selma, protesting for the right to vote. Sheriff Clark broadcast that if he sees anyone marching from the courthouse, he would immediately arrest them. And leader Rev King was attacked by a segregationist at his hotel. Still, the marchers were determined.
You see, the campaign needed publicity. It was a way to show others the brutality that the black community faced, and it was truly unbelievable. There was a sense of hope that one day we would be able to vote as easily as the white folks could. I remember thinking to myself that, wow, we might finally be making a change.
In another act of defiance, Dr. King led a series of marches, including one from Birmingham to Selma on March 7th of 1965. With SCLC's leader Hosea Williams and SNCC's John Lewis at the front of the march, 600 blacks embarked on a 54-mile-long protest. Along the way, the protesters were met with some bad company. Police officers and Sheriff Clark's men surrounded demonstrators and forbade them from passing through.
I didn't go on the march. I was afraid of what will happen, but my friends didn't listen. They said to me, "No, I'm going, and that's that." They said it was the only way that things would be able to change, and I realized that sometimes you have to take risks if you want a better future.
The police dealt with this nonviolent action with violence. They started attacking the protesters, including SNCC's leader John Lewis, creating what is known as Bloody Sunday. Later, Judge Frank Johnson Jr. issued a restraining order that prevented the continuation of the protest. On March 9th, Dr. King continued his march with 2,000 blacks but were stopped by state troopers. On the night of the protest, 3 whites traveling to Selma in order to join in on the campaign were attacked, leading to the death of Unitarian minister James J. Reeb, who was one of the 3. This led to Turnaround Tuesday, a retreat in the march. President Lyndon B. Johnson urged Congress to pass a law that will allow for blacks to vote. Meanwhile, the SNCC continued to suffer from more attacks and the intensity of the issue grew. The SCLC organized another march that would last for 5 days under the protection of Alabama's governor. On March 21st, 8,000 people from Selma marched to Montgomery while singing and chanting the reign. There, Reb King addressed the crowd and their demands for voting rights. Although the campaign started to slow down after the march to Montgomery, President Lyndon B. Johnson was finally able to sign the Voting Rights Act on August 6 of 1965, allowing for African Americans to vote. As a result, about 250,000 black voters were able to register in the South by the end of 1965. Not only did Dr. King's and the leaders' efforts pay off in the end, but they also made history in Selma, Alabama.